Aileen?
So she is actually our guest speaker today. So she is the chief of the fire department for East Bay Regional Parks District. And she is actually the one that came and helped me when I broke my ankle. So I always thank her for being there that day. It was a kind of a random run about how we ran into her, but she is the one that got to me and got me out of the park to then help me fix my ankle. So today we have Chief Aileen Theile here, and she is going to share some information about fire safety tips and preparedness and how to keep our parks safe. So Chief, do you want to go ahead and take it away?
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. I've been with East Bay Regional Park District for, well, since time began. No, actually, since about 1994. Moved around a bit in the district. I've been a park ranger. I've been a biologist for them, but I've always been in the fire department. And so somehow I found my way moving up in the ranks to become the fire chief. And kind of right now, I know it's National Small Business Month, but it's also Wildfire Preparedness Month. And I think what I wanted to do, well, two things. I wanted to share a little bit about being fire-wise with you all, but then this is your meeting, so if you guys had any particular interests that you wanted me to focus on after I do my quick little presentation, then I would be happy to answer that. Any more questions about the park district, or I've been there for quite some time, so I do know a little bit, and hopefully I'll have a good answer for you. But if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen and just do a real quick PowerPoint with you because. So hold on, here we go. See if this works. From the beginning, there we go. So I purposely put this up here. It says, get ready and go when needed. This is based off of something that CAL FIRE adopted, as well as some of the national agencies for fire preparedness, and they used to call it Ready, Set, Go. The reason I want to leave this slide up and leave the title in place is because we don't say that anymore. For those of you who don't know or aren't aware of climate change, which I can't imagine, it is here. People say, well, climate change is coming, or climate change just arrived. It's been here for some time. And that has really been very prevalent in the last 5 years. It started with having it started a long time ago, but actually with the 91 tunnel fire. And that had been the worst and most devastating fire at its point in time. Well upwards of 3,000 homes that burnt to the ground, 26 lives lost, right in the middle of wildland urban interface, or what we call the WUI as an acronym, which means wildland urban interface. And so for a long time, that really stuck in people's minds. And as we began to build back after that, people were quite aware of the things they needed to be when it came to situational awareness and living in a very fire-prone California. But our memories as people are short, and we forgot some of those things and some of the information we needed to keep ourselves safe until, of course, first the Tubbs fire, then the Kincaid fire, the Camp fire. You know, it's kind of like being in a concert and you start out in the 10th row seat and the action's kind of happening way up there on stage, and you can see a lot of it, but you don't feel the full effects. Then the fires over the last 5 years have, gradually gotten closer to home, right? They were up in Paradise and up in Santa Rosa. And then this last year, it was right up front and personal in the Park District, in the 2-county area, where we had extremely bad air for a 2-week period of time. That was the front row experience. So the reason I'm saying that is because that's even affected not just the folks that live around here and in California, but also the firefighters. The fires are a lot more voracious than they used to be. They're a lot more dangerous to fight. And so it's really important for you all to know that when we say go, we need you to go, and I'll tell you why. First, understand a little bit about wildfires and how firefighters react to it. Every firefighter on this planet lives by the rule of 3, which is the very highest priority is life. The second highest priority is property, and the third is environment. So when we approach a fire, it's to save life. if life is there or present, that's our first priority, and we cannot move on to number 2 until number 1 has been checked off. That is why we say when you are asked to leave your homes, please do so, because we can't begin to save your property when your life is still present. So, and I'll repeat that theme a couple times probably in this presentation. So wildland fires are usually caused by humans, sometimes by lightning strikes like we had last year. They can be very devastating. It can happen very quickly, and they can disrupt transportation, gas, power, communication. One of the biggest things that the fire service is dealing with now is, even though we have our radios and our interoperability to talk to each other, like the rest of you, we depend on cell phones, which usually work unless the cell towers are burnt down. Until, of course, you introduced the PSPS, the public safety power shutoffs. I have now several times been commuting on Highway 24 because my home is in Pacheco, not far from you all, and trying to talk on a phone, and we can't do that because the PG&E, the local power company has shut down all the power to the towers, and now your cell phones don't work in the middle of Highway 24. So something to keep in mind. So wildfires can happen anywhere at any time. We no longer have a season. And of course, even though we don't have a fire season, when the wind is hot and dry, which is typically during our summer and fall, that's when we're going to get increased fire danger. So wildfires can ruin homes, cause injuries or death to humans and animals. We've seen that time and time and again. Wildfires are technically an unplanned fire that burns in a wildland or in an urban area. We do have other kinds of fires that can be useful in preventing catastrophic wildland fires, and those are prescribed fires. And prescribed fire is something that happens under certain prescriptions. In other words, certain time of day, certain wind speed, can't be too much, can't be too little. The fuel has to be prepped in some cases, and pile burns. And those are important because we use that to reduce the fuels, the grasses, the trees, and the shrubs that can add to a fire and make it catastrophic. So that's the definition of what a wildfire is. It's an unplanned fire. They can put dozens, even hundreds of homes at risk simultaneously. So Coffey Park, they estimate they lost about 200 homes in a matter of about 5 minutes, where they were burned beyond the ability to save them. The firefighters, when they first arrive, may not have the resources to protect each home. So we do something that we call triage. And it's important. I mean, we call them survivors or losers, and that's a very callous way that the fire service kind of refers to homes and neighborhoods. But it really creates a clear picture when strike teams are coming through neighborhoods and really trying to see which ones we can take the time to defend and which ones we're going to write off. But the good news is, to make your home one that we don't write off, there are actions that you can take that will help your home survive, whether you're there or we're there or not yet. If you are under a wildfire warning, get to safety right away. The media often focuses on people who have stayed back to protect their homes. And while the homeowner in me understands you work your whole life, and you put all your time and energy into something that is a huge resource and kind of like your life savings, when we tell you to go, you need to go. You just need to leave. Remember, life is our first priority. If you're there, we're not going to give two hoots about your home. We're going to want to get you out of there. So leave, please leave if told to do so. If you do get trapped because these fires are quick moving, if you get in your car and you're stuck on a road and it's smoky, you don't know where the fire is, try to call 911. Do turn on your radio to an AM channel that gets any kind of reception and listen for emergency and alerts. And remember that you are not replaceable, but that your home is. There are other things that you can do to be prepared or right now, and that's sign up for the AC alert system, which is in Alameda County. I apologize, Concord. I don't have the one for Concord up here, but I know you guys have one. There's social media posts. There's now weather alerts that happen, emails and texts, Nextdoor, Nixtel. I think Berkeley's got like 10 different ways to notify their folks. You can be on reverse callback, so the home or business phones. If you belong to a business, you can sign up as well. If you've got a landline, they will contact you. But know how and when to stay safe. Be prepared. Being prepared helps all of us alleviate panic. When Melissa fell and she broke her leg, I said, are you okay? Do you need any water? She said, no, I've got water and I've got something to sit on. I'm okay until you can get me out. She wasn't panicked because I think she felt like she was pretty prepared. So that's a good example. Know your evacuation routes. You know, when I first gave this PowerPoint presentation about 6 or 7 years ago, of course I've updated it since then, even for a fire chief who I've been out of county I've been gone for 45 days at a time away from home and family on fires. You see it, you know it. But then even when I see the stuff that happens so close to home, where entire communities are knocked out, it becomes way more profound for me. So know your evacuation routes and find several ways to leave the area. Not just in your neighborhood. Look at the major thoroughfare. As you're driving home, as you're commuting home, take a look. Well, if I can't take this road, what other road could I take? Take a look around you to see about overhead power lines. You don't need to be a firefighter or somebody who works for PG&E to have situational awareness. So when you've got time to think about other things on your ride home, consider these things: evacuation routes, where a good place for your family to meet might be, and have a plan for pets and livestock. I'm a big animal lover, so I like to make sure that you consider those as well. This is a big one. Nobody listens to the news anymore in the morning, I guess. The younger generation, everybody gets things via their cell phone, but it's on the cell phone too. Tune in to whatever your favorite weather station is, or even the National Weather Service. You can sign up for alerts that'll go directly to your phone for your area. You don't have to wade through a bunch of stuff. And you should know what it means when you're under a red flag warning or a fire weather watch. The fire weather watches are usually issued by the National Weather Service about 72 hours before a red flag warning. So it shouldn't be a surprise to you when somebody says, hey, we might be under a red flag warning. And what does that mean? A red flag warning means that the conditions, the weather, so the heat, the relative humidity, and the winds are such that if a fire ignites, it is likely going to move very rapidly. Now, it doesn't mean you need to be terrified. Fire departments are prepared for this. They train for this. We staff up, almost every single fire department staffs up. There's usually a meeting. I had a meeting with every fire chief in Contra Costa County. We do that on a regular basis. We're constantly talking to each other about putting strike teams in place. You don't see it, it's not announced. Just know that in your community, there's likely a strike team of 5 engines that is ready to do nothing but respond to a fire on a red flag day. What should you do? You should probably not use power tools, not just because of fire danger, but also we've got that kind of a weather system. It's really bad to put the exhaust and some of the fumes up into the air, like on a spare the air day when we're under those conditions. Don't use anything that could create a spark. Don't have a campfire at night or a little bonfire in your backyard. It's safer to use propane. If you've got propane, use propane barbecues. Stay away from any kind of activity or behavior that could potentially start a fire, and just please stay tuned to the weather. This is the big one here. Prepare for the long term. It's funny to me that we all as Californians have always been prepared for earthquakes, right? You when you're in second and third grade. Well, I'm probably dating myself, but we used to be, you know, they used to do an earthquake drill and we all got underneath our desks, right? It's interesting to me that the same has not been taught all this time in schools. Have a go bag, have a bag, just a backpack that's packed somewhere. It could be in the hall entry closet. Make sure the adults and the kids know where it is, and make sure you've got non-perishable foods for the pets as well, water, medications for the pets too. Can you guys tell I love animals? Masks, because as you have all experienced pre-COVID, masks were important for not just reducing the spread of illness, but also for the smoke that we have. An N95 will also take out particulates, the smoke particulates in the air that you don't necessarily want to breathe if you've got some underlying condition. Hand sanitizers, because if you do need to go and be sheltered someplace, you're going to be in a building with a lot of other people, and it just makes good sense, especially under COVID. Batteries and chargers, so batteries for your cell phones, extra chargers. I would even say, you know, an extra burner phone if you need to have a burn phone. And any kind of important papers. You can even go to Walmart, Target, any place like that, Ace Hardware, and buy, it's a little file cabinet. It's fairly light. It is fireproof, and you can put your important papers in there, insurance papers and things like that. It's really, really, really important to do this because you're never going to need it until you absolutely do need it. And then create a fire resistant zone around your house. This is too much really for everybody to remember, but you'll get the general idea. Low flammability plants. If it's dead, yank it out, get it out of there, get it away from your house. Prune your limbs 10 feet from the ground, you know, off the ground, or a third of the tree. If it's 8 feet, you know, if it's an 8-foot tree, you obviously can't prune it up 10 feet, but you can prune it up 4 or 5. Make sure there's generous space between the trees. Mow, prune, and water regularly unless we're in a drought. Don't stack firewood up next to your home. Stack it some way away from your home. That's probably that's a much safer place for it to be. This is just kind of a general overall of what we're looking for. So with the top trees up there, you can see they're spaced far apart. Right in the direct line around your house with home ignition zone, you see there's not too many plants. I know we like to have plants up next to our home, and you know, some of them are drought resistant and safer, but just remember that when we get these north winds, these winds out of the north, or Diablo winds, you'll hear the weather talk about, it means you're getting very hot, incredibly dry air that's coming across, and almost anything will ignite. Survive during. Leave immediately and bring your bag with you. We talked about this before. Call 911, give your location. If you are trapped, you know, don't be a victim. Turn your lights on, honk your horn so that people know you're there. There could be engines and dozers coming through the area, and they will be looking for lights. That's why we turn our lights on. Listen to the local weather radio, other alerting systems. And if you are not ordered to evacuate, but the conditions outside are smoky, stay in a safe inside location, but stay tuned in so that you know if things change. Listen to authorities to find out when it's safe to return. The picture they have down below is our folks at the Paradise Fire. Our guys came home so sick, and it wasn't because they weren't taking care of themselves, but you know, the things that we have on our homes are toxic when they burn. So when we say safe to return, we're not just talking about fires, we're talking about the off-gassing of the things that have been consumed. So you really need to take that into consideration for the health and safety of yourself and your family. Make sure you wear a respirator if you do have to go back in, sturdy shoes and long sleeves. Remember that wildfires dramatically change the landscape. So there are hidden dangers everywhere, and it's no place for pets or children. This is a dog that my firefighters got, and at the Paradise Fire, he was limping a little bit. So being the bleeding hearts they were, he got shoved in an engine overnight, slept with the guys. They gave him he had some MREs, which I'm sure he loved the taste of, but probably didn't affect him well. The great news is that they did find his owner. who had an autistic child, and this was the autistic child's best friend in the whole world. So pets are important because that child's whole world had been changed, but to have his best friend back was huge. So in addition to preparing yourself and your family for potential wildfires, considering work with your neighborhoods to prepare your entire neighborhood. Really, if you have one person in the block that's doing all the stuff they need to harden their home and make it resilient, and not everybody is doing it, you're not going to be as successful. The other thing to remember, please, is that if you've got a neighbor that you don't see very often and they're not doing their part before you kind of get on them for it, find out their situation. We're finding that there are a lot of elderly people or people with disabilities or people that just don't have the financial means to be able to prepare their home. And the neighborly thing to do would really be together and to reach out and see what you can't do to help them. So thank you for listening. I have put some websites here on this presentation for you to take a look at. It's nothing you probably haven't heard before. California Fire Safe Council, Ready for Wildfire, and then ready.gov. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
I have two. I listen to the news every morning. They've really been talking about how it can be a real dangerous year this year. And, I live like in a, suburban community, not really, near any open space or anything, but I should still kind of use that caution of things near my house just because of flying embers. So that's the big deal, huh?
That's the big deal. So we saw, I've been a firefighter since 1992. My grandfather was a firefighter. My dad was a firefighter. Wow. And it still amazes me. Coffee Park, you see them focus on that all the time. When a big box store burns to the ground and it's stucco and metal on the outside, you have to ask how did that happen? And it happened because fires create their own weather, and the embers being cast aloft, we call it chasing fire because you'll have a stand of eucalyptus or some other tree right here that's on fire. It's sending embers up and they're spotting 3 miles away, right? So how can firefighters, we call it, whenever we start to build a strategy very quickly on how to put a wildland fire out, we draw a box around it. Well, if that box can't be drawn because there's constantly fires happening outside of it, it becomes a very difficult situation to try to manage. So yes, the fact that you don't live right up next to parkland or wildland space doesn't mean that you're impervious. You absolutely are at risk as well. So you just need to be aware.
Okay. Thank you. And my second question is not necessarily about fires. It's about East Bay Regional, how much space they have, and they're getting ready to take some more space over at the Naval Weapons Station as well. It's awesome. I was just wondering if they're going to lighten some of the talks around mountain biking in those parks. What are your thoughts on that at all?
We're a moving target for that one.
I know. I was hesitant to ask, but
no, it's okay. I mean, it's I'm not the decision maker on that, but I can share my view. So I am an equestrian. I used to be an avid mountain biker. I can tell you that bikes and horses on the same trails are a huge problem. Trail use has been an issue for the park district for so many years, and we get to kind of like the right balance of how many of each we have in different areas, and then we buy new property and it upsets the balance and it's a mess. So we have over 73 parks and upwards of 100, and I think we have 130,000 acres now in 2 counties. Some of it is land bank or mitigatory acres for resource management issues, but I'm not sure that's a word, mitigatory. Anyway, it's constantly an issue, and now throw e-bikes into the mix, and that and they need to be considered too, because there are a lot of people that use those e-bikes as a commuter tool. They use the Iron Horse Trail, which most of you may know, that kind of runs right down Highway 680, for lack of a better reference point. And we did a pilot program because we had the other bicyclists complaining about the speed with which the e-bikes were. So it's going to be a moving target. It's something the Park District is continually working on. The mountain bike group is an incredibly verbal and loud group, and the Park District holds them in very high regard. They may be eclipsed by the equestrian groups that are out there too. So the fact of the matter is, all park users are equally important to us, and we will continually strive to find that balance.
Okay,
That's
cool. Thank you. Great answer. Thank you.
And where's my margarita?
Working on it. Hey, you're right down the street from us. Swing by.
For those of you who weren't here, I'm not just overtly soliciting alcohol during the day. Kevin offered Mexican food, and I said, how about a margarita? So.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? I have one. Over your years of experience of being the chief, what's been the most probably common reason why you've seen fires start?
It's usually human induced some way, not intentional by any means. Whether it be, believe it or not, people still, it's not unusual that they smoke, but they still toss cigarettes. Vehicles malfunctioning when they're on or near our cars, you know, or our trails and our park entrances. In fact, a fire just popped as I was presenting to you up on the Altamont Pass near Grant Line Road, and those were always vehicle accidents that somehow, you know, we get either the catalytic converter blows a chunk of molten metal over into the grass or something like that. That's the majority of things that happens. It's really hard to believe, but statistics show that the fires start on private property or a business, and they burn onto our wildlands. So we have a very robust fire danger operating plan that incrementally, based on the scientific and weather readings that we're getting, puts restrictions in place. So right now, the entire park district is a level 1 restriction, and that's not just for the people that visit the park, that's for our workers as well.
Interesting. I guess I have another kind of personal situation question. Gosh, I think it was end of 2019, where I live, we were close to an evacuation zone. And we have a large backyard that has a huge hill of just dead grass because we rent, and it's too much to take care of. And so we went ahead and try to wet as much as the ground as possible. Do you still recommend to try to wet if you do have the plants and as much as you can through that to prevent the fire from sparking because of the embers?
You can, so it's a little hard to explain, but grass fires, we don't worry about as much. We call that a light flashy fuel. Now that is the kind of fire that kills the majority of wildland firefighters every year, but they kind of bump your property and then they're done, right? So many times, not all the time, but many times under normal weather condition where it's just hot and dry, the fire starts, it's going to be very scary. The flame lengths are usually 1.5 times the height of the grass. So you know those years when we get like 4-foot grass, that's 8-foot flames, right? It's pretty scary. But it's going to bump your property line and then be done. So if you want to put a sprinkler out, you know, to try to kind of stave it off, and then leave it if you're told to leave, that's fine. Just remember that they may tap into the water system to try to put the fire out, which means you might lose that water supply as far as your sprinkler goes.
Right. Okay. We do have a question in the chat. What's one of your proudest moments or sense of accomplishment in your career?
I think being the fire department, I was our fire department's first female captain and then first female chief. And I rode that high for a while until I have to go to meetings where I'm the only woman there. With regard to the other fire chiefs, definitely the chick in the room. And that's okay. I'm okay with that, but it would be nice to see others. Melinda is the interim chief over at Oakland Fire Department right now. When Joanna Hayes White left over in San Francisco, that was a big hit for me because I no longer, the new chief is also a woman, but I don't know her very well. So it would be nice to have more women chiefs. That would be something that's nice. But yeah, probably my highest accomplishment. Unfortunately, about 2 or 3 months before I got this job, my father had a massive stroke. And so he's unable to understand what my job is, but I like to think that he would have been pretty proud of me. He was a hot shot back when hot shots were just beginning, and he worked for the Forest Service. So it would have been nice to be able to tell him and have him understand. I told him, but I don't know that he understands. So probably those two things.
Yeah, especially with you having a line of firefighters in your family.
And not
Yeah,
Melissa, huh? Melissa's not.
Melissa's not what?
Not saving her life isn't one of the.
I'm sorry. No, she was just one of the best patients because she was so calm and just so kind of matter of fact. She's like, I think I did something bad. I heard a bad sound.
Thank you. I did. I actually looked at Amanda's husband and said, I think I'm going to need surgery. And he was like, okay, sure enough.
Now I remember you, Amanda. Okay.
Yeah. My son still talks about riding in the car.
Yeah, that's always big fun.
We do have another question from the chat. Do you have any structures related to PG&E on our parks? Oh, hold on. It moved. On our parks land.
Do we have any PG&E structures? We have, so we have there, hold on a minute, I got to get this right. So there's the transmission lines, which are the smaller lines. Do you think those would be the bigger lines? And we have the distribution lines. So we have a lot of those that run through our parks. So that can be an issue. We have a very close working relationship with PG&E. Mostly good, sometimes contentious. Sometimes we butt heads when they say it's red flag day, we're going to come into your park, and I say, no, you're not. And they say, yes, we are. And I say, no, you're not. So if we can't, I don't care that you have, yeah, we're just not going to put ourselves through that. So, but we have done a lot of fuels reduction work because we've been the recipient of a lot of PG&E grants because of their proximity. One of the parameters for applying to some of their grants is that we have to be close to some of those transmission and distribution lines. So that part has been, you know, lemon out of lemonades, right? Lemonade out of lemons. That's what I meant.
Oh gosh, more questions are coming in. Do you find that as a female working with primarily men that you have to learn more, work harder to be accepted on a semi-equal plane?
Yes and no. I have some very different thoughts about being a woman in a man's world. I am a little old school. I was raised a little bit differently than some of the young women now. Not saying one or the other is right, just saying that it's your job to make sure they know who you are and that you're present. Being silent doesn't work. You need to assert yourself. I'm not saying that if you're a quiet woman, you can't carry a big stick, but you do need to be present and not shrink away. So I've had a couple conversations over my career where I've said, well, it seems you have a problem with me being, you know, seems that you have a problem because I'm a female. And they've said yes. And I've said, well, I guess we can do this easier. We can do this hard because I'm not going away and you do have to work with me. So it's kind of up to you on how this goes from here. I mean, you definitely have to be proud of the fact that you're a woman. not apologize for it, and just move forward. And, you know, most of the time, the people that are worth having relationships with will pay attention and see that you are capable, and that you can be a good partner to them, and they'll pay attention and behave appropriately.
And then kind of a follow-up to that, when did you feel that you earned the respect?
Guess I kind of stopped caring a little bit. That was helpful. You know, we all work together. All of the fire chiefs work together, and we all need each other one time or another. So I demand that I be treated respectfully, because I treat other people respectfully. If I'm not treated respectfully, we'll have an offline conversation, and it'll just be like, you know, hey, I'm a human, you're a human. If you treat me with respect, it'll go a lot further for you, and someday you will need me. And so that usually works out. And to be honest with you, you know, it's kind of low level stuff that I get, and I don't get it very often anymore. Maybe I've been here long enough that the people that were worth having relationships with paid attention, and the other ones that weren't just kind of faded away. But when the majority of the people are doing the right thing, and I feel like that's kind of the way I've been treated, that the majority of people have treated me well. It's kind of like, you know, if you're not one of those people, then you're not part of the group, right? So, and we all need each other. So it kind of really behooves everybody to be respectful to everybody else.
I think so. I definitely felt that day that you came out, you know, you were doing your job and you didn't care who it was, what the situation was, you were doing your job. And I think that alone earns a lot of respect by everyone that sees that.
Yeah, and I think my folks know too that I'm a servant leader. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to block and tackle for them to make sure that they are taken care of. They know that they're cared about. They know that I believe that they are the most important resource, not the equipment and all of that. So, and I also demand that everybody respect each other. We're not going to put people down in the department. We are going to, if anything, if somebody else has got something they need to work on, or everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, that we're going to build each other up. And that's something that I think everybody has within them, but I think women do that particularly well. I think for each other and for their families. So that might be an advantage we have.
Absolutely. We'll take one more question, and then we'll let the chief get going and then wrap up with some announcements. But kind of in regards to what I was asking, do you know if there's a percentage of fires, especially in California, that were started by humans versus natural fire starters?
Not last year. I think that it is mostly human or mechanical caused. I don't have an exact statistic for you, but last year blew it out of the water. We had over 40,000 lightning strikes in a 24-hour period across the state. They started in the south and moved up, and then just kept going. So the resources couldn't catch up. In fact, it was hard to keep track of the fires, only because we started taking individual fires that were so close together and changing them from individual fires to complexes, right? I think I lived at the incident command post for about 21 days because we were all involved, all the local chiefs, in trying to come up with a plan, a pre-plan, after plan, every kind of plan you can imagine. And so, yeah, last year was a year that will be remembered for a very long time. And I would definitely say the majority of the fires that started there were, it's an anomaly, were caused by the lightning strike. So that was purely nature.
Wow, that's a large number.
Yes, it is. Unprecedented.
Well, thank you again for coming to speak to our group. You've offered great advice, from fire to how to be strong in our communities. I appreciate you coming out and speaking to our group. Anytime you need anything from the chamber, we're always here for you. So thank you again. And I hope everyone took away some tips from the chief that you can apply to your personal lives. I saw Callie said she's going to make sure her pet information is all wrapped up for her cat. So I think there was a lot of good information. And just to wrap up real quick with some chamber announcements, tomorrow the grant does close. So that's 95 grants to small businesses, $10,000 each for rent arrears. You can find out information online. Our Shop Concord program is coming up on the 26th. So that is buy a $50 gift card, get a $25 gift card free, or buy a $20 gift card, get a $10 gift card free, as long as we have money in that bank, and that's in partnership with the City of Concord. So we're very excited for that. Next week, we do have Tim Hale, who is the Executive Director of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, coming out to speak about the Gomentum Station that is out on the Concord Naval Weapons Station base. So an interesting update on what's going on with autonomous vehicles. And then next Thursday, we do have Allison Shu, the Director of Clinical Operations for John Muir Behavioral Health Center here in Concord. So we have a lot of good speakers coming up. If you guys have any questions for us, you know where to find us. All of the information is online, and we will go ahead and send the contact list for everyone on here, especially because we've had some new faces on here as well. So if you have any questions, you know where to reach out, and I hope everyone has a great Thursday. I hope everyone goes and gets lunch after this, and keep your fire safety top of mind, especially coming up into summer. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Interesting. Thanks, Melissa.